Hello, this is Laurel, who is always self-isolating out at Tara Farm and Nursery and the Refuge Permaculture Center, which means all kinds of projects on a day like this when the weather's in the 60s are getting done. This poor plant we're looking at right here is a black currant. Usually gives me pounds and pounds of currants every year, but last year, if you go back and look at the posts from this time or from July of last year, the bark on this was so completely stripped by the grasshoppers. You can see some that I left where they've actually nibbled on the bark. So what I decided to do was two things. I pruned it up significantly and cut off a lot of the dead material, because with currants they tend to be produced on the new wood. There's quite a bit of new wood, but I just don't know with the damage from the grasshoppers how much of it is going to really survive. So I pruned it all up, and with the thought that a lot of the grasshoppers died here, they probably laid their eggs here. I have cleared off the majority, all the way down to the dirt, of the mulch that was out here to suppress weeds. The grasshoppers lay their egg sacs in the top couple inches of soil, so by taking out 3 or 4 inches of mulch, I'm really hoping that I got a lot of those eggs. The other thing I did over here today was get this little rain barrel set up. Right there is where 2 pieces of old gutter come together, and of course it leaks. So I put a funnel on there down to this container, which is actually a sump pump well. I like the design on it, and for some reason this side of the roof doesn't channel as much rain. And then I put a hose on it for overflow when it gets too much into water. The plants that are left here, you can really see the damage the grasshoppers did on this sumac tree. That white wood, they stripped all the bark off of it. So the only way this is going to come back this year is from the roots. I'll just keep my fingers crossed on that. But the good news here with the black currant is that I don't know if you can see it, but in there you can see a little green growth again coming up from the roots that was underneath all that mulch. Here are some of the cuttings from that black currant that were buried under the mulch. Actually started roots. This is how it recreates itself when it's stressed. Those branches that fell to the ground and were covered under the mulch started roots, and you can actually see some green growth there. So I will take these as cuttings, put them in some nice rich potting soil, and get some new plants. That black currant is so productive. It's just amazing. So I'm really hoping that these little cutting babies will also do as well. As far as the dead material that I cut away from it, all of the prunings, these are the perfect size for hugelkultur in a smaller garden, but I'm doing smaller hugelkultur. Raised beds is what that means. It's just a very hip term that permaculture people use. These small branches will give it loft once I give dirt in there so that air and water can circulate, but eventually they'll also decay and break down faster than big pieces would. So this is actually the perfect size to use in those smaller hugelkulturs, and we'll go over and look at one that's a little further along right now. So this is a raised bed that I started a couple of years ago, with branches, again, the size that we just looked at in the wheelbarrow, but it's filled in with decayed mulch, decayed leaves, much smaller branches. And then this year, I'm finally filtering in dirt to fill in those spaces, and next year, it will be ready to plant. It's a little windbreak. You can see some of the dirt and manure. That's aged cow manure that I'm filling it in with. You can see the purpose of this raised bed will be, and the plants that go in it, will be to give a windbreak to the little vineyard out there. And that's another one that I'm waiting to see how well it comes back. Again, I've cleaned out all of the old mulch around the edges, just in case the grasshoppers decided to plant their babies in my vineyard. And over here, we can see the rhubarb is coming in. Now I am going to give that some clean mulch and start watering it when we don't have any rain for a few days. And this is the little vineyard, and I'm just hoping and praying that eventually I see little green leaves come up on these, but again, the grasshoppers really did a job on these as well. Let's go out and look at the newer windbreaks I'm putting in. And there's one of the little Paloma ducks. She stays in the pond all day. She just loves it. This is just an old converted satellite dish from 30, 40 years ago. Plugged the holes, and now I am building around it. There's some branches there. And then over here, another little hugelkultur windbreak that I've started. And I'll move all the prunings from this year over here, and then leaf mulch also to fill that in. And then that will be planted to give them a windbreak and a place to get some shelter, get out of the sun. Look how happy she is. I have a feeling that this satellite dish probably makes the ducks and geese happier than it ever did a human being. Are you having fun, sweetie? Yeah? Okay. I will take one more little trip to show where all that mulch I removed went. You can see that I'm still pulling it back from some of the currents in here. And then, I didn't really want to bag it up and take it to the landfill. I'll clean up all this mulch. There's a hose in the ground here that snakes through. I did minimal pruning on this side and very extreme pruning on this side. But what I'm seeing is, look at this. After all the devastation, they got a little bit of an ice burn from that freeze the other night. But they're coming back from the roots. So let's go see what I'm doing with all this grasshopper mulch. So one of my client student friends had a job cleaning up a job site that included a request to haul this round stock tank to the landfill. Instead, he asked me if I wanted it, and I spent a lot of time cleaning it out, hosing it out, washing it out. And what I'm doing is layering the grasshopper contaminated mulch with local soil. You can just see some of it right there exposed. And this will be the last layer of mulch when I get the current mulch in there. Because I want it buried under at least 2 feet of dirt. Then I'll mix in some richer compost or garden soil into that top couple feet. And then this will be a veggie planting area this year. I'll drill little holes in the side of the tank to release any excess water that might get in there, because it's not a pond. But then that grasshopper contaminated mulch will be covered with dirt, and I can get some things planted in there and save some space. And another little demonstration project. I have used stock tanks in the past. The bottoms of them tend to rot out after 5 to 10 years, depending on what they're exposed to. So, Think I'll bring in a couple more wheelbarrow loads of dirt here, get this covered up, and as soon as we have our last frost, whenever that is, I'll be planting in here. I'm going to be planting some heirloom garbanzo beans or chickpeas so I can make hummus during next winter, and we'll just see how they do. So this is what goes on here on a day when it's 60 degrees. There's my next project, getting the rainwater catchment reservoir set up for the nursery. The vertical planters are all sheeted and ready to go. Here's some horseradish that's just starting to come up. I'm going to throw some sheeting over the wire forms here. And part of that is to give the greenhouse effect, but really it's in case the grasshoppers are bad again this year, and then I can just keep these things covered up, and hopefully I will be able to save some of my home vegetable garden crops this year. Okay. Hey, it's gorgeous. While it's gorgeous, get out there, but don't get ahead of yourself. We could be great, or we could have a couple more little winter storms like we just had. Anything is possible in spring in Casper, Wyoming. But today is gorgeous. Thanks for being there, and I hope very, very soon I'll be able to offer classes again and get you folks out here so you can enjoy days out here like this. Take care. Breathe deep. Stay home. Play in your yards. Hug a dog for me. Chin chin.